Ryan had traveled through space many times before, but this mission felt heavier than usual. He was not carrying cargo, not leading soldiers, not exploring unknown stars. This time, he was responsible for a single passenger who could decide the fate of peace between two great powers. She was Princess Aurelia, heir to the throne of a powerful alien empire. The human fleet had agreed to escort her safely across the neutral zone. Ryan was chosen because he was known for his calm judgment. He had no interest in politics, but orders were orders. His small ship glided smoothly, stars drifting past the windows like silver dust. Aurelia sat quietly across from him, her back straight, her crown-like headpiece glinting faintly under the cabin lights. She looked every bit a royal figure, graceful, proud, untouchable. Ryan noticed she barely spoke to him. She only gave short answers, her voice calm but distant. To her, he was just another human soldier. To him, she was just another mission. Or at least, that was what they both tried to believe. Hours passed in silence. Ryan focused on the controls, watching the scanners. The neutral zone was never safe. Pirates, smugglers, and mercenaries prowled the edges of these systems. Still, he told himself they would pass through quickly. Then the alarm screamed. Red lights flashed across the cockpit. Multiple ships had appeared on the radar, moving fast. Pirates, Ryan muttered, his jaw tightening. Aurelia's calm mask broke for the first time. Her golden eyes widened as she leaned closer to the screen. They dare attack here? Do they not know who I am? Pirates don't care who you are, Ryan replied, his hands flying over the controls. They see a small ship, they smell weakness. The enemy ships fired. Explosions rattled the hull, throwing sparks across the cabin. Ryan struggled to keep the ship steady. We won't last long, he said, sweat running down his brow. We need to abandon ship. You mean, escape pods? Aurelia asked, her voice filled with disbelief. Ryan didn't have time to explain. He grabbed her wrists, surprisingly cold and delicate, and pulled her toward the emergency bay. The ship shook again as another blast struck. He slammed the hatch open, forcing her inside the small craft. Get in. Now. Her royal pride almost made her protest, but the fury of the explosion silenced her. She stepped in quickly, and Ryan followed. With a hard push on the lever, the escape craft blasted away just before their main ship erupted in a ball of fire. For a moment, the escape craft spun wildly, stars and wreckage flashing past. Ryan fought the controls until the small vessel stabilized. The pirates did not chase. They had what they wanted: the destroyed remains of a human escort ship. Silence returned, but this time it was not calm. It was heavy, tense. Aurelia sat across from him in the cramped escape craft. Her elegant robes now looked out of place in the small, metal capsule. Her eyes met his, sharp and questioning. Do you understand what you have done? She said slowly. I was meant to reach the council. My father's message must be delivered. Without me, there may be war. Ryan leaned back against the wall, breathing hard. If I hadn't acted, you'd be dead right now. War doesn't matter if we're already gone. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She wanted to argue, but she could not deny his words. The escape craft floated quietly through endless space. Ryan checked the systems. The navigation screen blinked with error codes. The fuel gauge was almost empty. The radio gave only static. He let out a long breath. We're stranded. The words hung between them like cold iron. For the first time, Aurelia's proud expression faltered. She turned her face slightly away, staring at the endless stars outside the small window. How long? She asked quietly. Could be days. Could be weeks. Depends if someone picks up our signal. Silence followed again. This time it was heavier. Ryan studied her carefully. She was clearly afraid, but she hid it under a mask of control. He almost admired that. Yet he also knew that survival in space was not about pride. It was about trust, teamwork, and choices made in seconds. But could a human soldier and an alien princess, two people raised in different worlds, truly work together? Neither of them spoke the thought out loud, but both felt the same question echo in their hearts. The stars stretched endlessly outside. No rescue in sight. No guarantee of survival. Ryan tightened his grip on the controls, while Aurelia sat straighter, refusing to show fear. They were alone now. Stranded. And their long trial together had just begun. The escape craft drifted quietly, its small lights glowing weakly against the endless dark. Ryan kept his eyes on the control panel, though most of the screens showed nothing useful, just red warnings and broken signals. Princess Aurelia sat across from him, her hands folded tightly in her lap. She had not spoken for some time, but her steady gaze told him she was waiting for answers. Finally, she broke the silence. "You are the pilot. Tell me what we can do." Ryan sighed. "We wait. The craft has enough oxygen for some days. Maybe weeks, if we ration carefully. But the signal is weak. I don't know if anyone will hear it." Her expression hardened. "Waiting is not enough. My people are counting on me. And my orders were to keep you alive," Ryan replied. "Right now, that's the only mission that matters." Aurelia did not like his words, but she said nothing more. She turned her face to the window, where stars stretched like an endless sea. Her pride was clear, but so was her worry. Hours passed. The air grew colder as the small craft's systems weakened. Ryan moved around the cabin, checking every wire and panel. Aurelia watched him in silence, her golden eyes sharp. At last she asked, "Do you even know how these systems work?" Ryan gave her a short look. "I've fixed ships in worse shape than this. Don't worry." But her words sparked something unexpected. She stood and moved closer to the control board. Her fingers brushed over a section of glowing symbols. Unlike Ryan, she did not have to guess, she recognized them. "This is not only human technology," she explained. "The Council demanded your fleet use shared systems for this mission. My people built half of this craft." Ryan blinked, surprised. "You understand it?" Aurelia nodded slightly, pride slipping into her voice. "A princess does not only study history and ceremony. I was taught engineering too. My father insisted." For the first time, Ryan saw her not as a distant royal figure, but as someone who knew how to fight against hopeless odds. Together, they bent over the controls. Ryan worked with wires and tools, while Aurelia guided him through alien codes and designs. At first they argued. He doubted her methods, she doubted his rough handling of the parts. But slowly, the repairs began to work. A few systems blinked green again. When the oxygen level steadied, Ryan leaned back, letting out a breath. "Not bad. We might actually last a bit longer." Aurelia's lips curved just slightly, almost like a smile. "You see? Humans do not solve everything alone." Ryan chuckled under his breath. "Fair enough. Guess I'll keep you around." The moment was small, but it shifted something between them. As time moved on, they began to share small things. Ryan pulled out ration packs, handing one to her. She looked at it with suspicion, the dull gray food not at all like the fine meals she was used to. "You expect me to eat this?" she asked. "It keeps you alive," Ryan said. "That's all that matters." Reluctantly, she tried a bite. Her face showed clear disapproval, but she forced herself to finish it. "It is terrible," she declared. Ryan laughed quietly, shaking his head. "Yeah, but you get used to it." Aurelia tilted her head, studying him. "You laugh in such a time?" Humans are strange. Strange keeps me sane, Ryan replied. That night, if night could be counted in the endless dark, Aurelia admitted something in a softer voice. I have never been this far from my guards. From my people. I was always surrounded. Always watched. Now, it feels different. Ryan looked at her, seeing not just a princess but a young woman caught between fear and pride. Different isn't always bad, he said. Sometimes it shows you who you really are. She was silent for a long time after that. The days blurred together. They repaired what they could, shared rations, and took turns resting in the narrow seats. Tension still rose often. Aurelia complained that Ryan was too reckless with the systems. Ryan snapped back that she was too proud to admit mistakes. But slowly, their arguments ended faster, their words softened. It was during one of these arguments that the cabin shook violently. A small meteor shower struck the escape craft. The hull groaned, sparks bursting from the panels. Hold on! Ryan shouted, gripping the controls. The craft spun, alarms blaring. One shard ripped across the side, tearing open part of the ship. Emergency barriers sealed it, but oxygen dropped sharply. Ryan's jaw clenched. We can't stay in this thing. We'll suffocate. Through the window, he spotted something, a faint glimmer on a nearby frozen moon. It looked like a structure. An outpost, he muttered. Old, maybe abandoned. But it's our only chance. Aurelia leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Can we land there? We'll have to, Ryan said. Or we won't last another day. The small craft shuddered again as he steered it toward the moon. Aurelia gripped the seat, but her voice remained steady. Then take us down, human, she said. We will survive. Ryan nodded. For the first time, he felt they were not two strangers forced together. For the first time, he felt they were a team. The escape craft rattled as it entered the thin atmosphere of the frozen moon. The outside was a wasteland of white and gray, with sharp mountains rising like jagged teeth. Ryan's hands gripped the controls, fighting to keep the ship steady. Aurelia sat beside him, holding tight to her seat, her golden eyes fixed on the window. She did not scream, did not panic. Her calmness impressed Ryan, though he saw her knuckles turn pale as she clutched the armrest. The small craft slammed into the snowy surface with a harsh thud. It skidded across ice, throwing clouds of frozen dust into the air before finally grinding to a stop. For a moment, there was silence. Ryan let out a shaky breath. Still alive. Aurelia straightened her posture. Of course. We had no choice but to survive. Ryan smirked faintly. You say it like survival is a royal command. She gave him a sharp look but said nothing more. Outside, the frozen land stretched endlessly, a place of silence and shadow. Far in the distance stood the faint outline of a structure, tall, broken towers covered in ice. There, Ryan pointed. That must be the outpost. Looks abandoned. It will shelter us, Aurelia said firmly, though her voice carried a trace of doubt. Carrying a small survival kit, they stepped out into the icy wind. The cold bit at Ryan's skin immediately, and he pulled his jacket tighter. Aurelia's robes shimmered with a faint energy field, protecting her body from the freezing air. Convenient, Ryan muttered. Wish I had one of those. It is standard for my people, Aurelia replied, walking ahead with her chin held high. Ryan shook his head but followed, their boots crunching over ice. The outpost was closer than it looked. Its walls were cracked, its lights dead. A broken sign in both human and alien script marked it as a joint station built long ago, then forgotten. The main gate was frozen shut. Ryan pressed against it, grunting as the metal refused to move. Stand aside, Aurelia said calmly. She touched the gate's panel, whispering a code in her language. The system flickered weakly, then the gate groaned open. Ryan raised a brow. Guess being a princess comes with a few tricks. Knowledge, not tricks, she corrected. Inside, the air was stale and freezing, but the walls kept out the biting wind. They found dark corridors lined with frost, doors broken, wires hanging loose. This place hasn't been touched in years, Ryan muttered. Yet it still stands, Aurelia replied. That is enough. They searched the rooms, finding scraps of equipment and an old power core. Ryan knelt beside it, brushing away frost. If I can get this running, we'll have light and heat. Aurelia knelt beside him, her elegant hands surprisingly steady as she checked the alien symbols. The system is unstable. If it overloads, the whole outpost could collapse. Then we don't overload it, Ryan said. Simple. It took hours of work. Ryan pulled wires, replaced fuses, and forced parts back into place. Aurelia guided him through the alien systems, correcting him when he nearly made mistakes. They argued often, their voices echoing in the empty halls, but in the end the power core hummed faintly to life. Dim lights flickered across the outpost. Heat seeped slowly into the air. Ryan leaned back, wiping sweat from his brow. Not bad for a frozen ruin. Aurelia allowed a small smile. Not bad for a human. That night, they sat beside the weak heater, ration packs in their hands. The silence was softer now, less heavy than before. Aurelia broke it first. You risk much for someone you barely know. Why? Ryan shrugged. It's my job. But jobs do not make people throw themselves into danger, she pressed. There must be something more. Ryan thought for a moment, staring at the faint glow of the heater. Maybe because I know what it's like to be left behind. When I was young, my crew was stranded after a mission went bad. Nobody came for days. We survived only because we trusted each other. I guess. I don't want anyone else to feel that. Aurelia studied him quietly, her proud face softening. Then perhaps you are not only a soldier. You are something more. Ryan looked at her, a little surprised. And you? You're not only a princess. For a moment, they shared a faint laugh, the sound echoing through the frozen halls. Their peace did not last long. While exploring deeper into the outpost, a loud crack echoed above them. The ceiling shook, ice breaking loose. With a sudden roar, a section of the corridor collapsed. Move! Ryan shouted, pushing Aurelia aside as heavy debris crashed down. Dust and frost filled the air. When it cleared, Ryan was half buried under broken metal. He gritted his teeth, struggling to push free. Aurelia rushed to his side. Stay still. You will only make it worse. She grabbed a broken rod, using it as leverage. Her strength surprised even herself as she freed him. Ryan coughed, shaking ice from his shoulders. You saved me, he said, catching his breath. Aurelia's voice was steady, though her hands trembled. You saved me first. Now we are equal. Ryan smiled faintly despite the pain. Guess that makes us partners. For the first time, Aurelia did not argue. She simply nodded. That night, as the outpost lights flickered weakly, Ryan and Aurelia rested side by side. Their bond was still fragile, still uncertain. But something had changed. They were no longer just a human soldier and an alien princess forced together. They were survivors. The weak glow of the outpost's lights filled the cold corridors. Ryan sat on a bench beside a broken panel, trying to repair a small communication device. Aurelia stood nearby, her golden eyes scanning the walls as if the ruins held memories only she could see. After a long silence, she spoke quietly. Ryan, tell me about your world. About where you come from. Ryan looked up, surprised by the question. Few humans ever asked him to speak about Earth. He hesitated, then nodded. It's big. Oceans, mountains, cities. People all over the place, doing things, living lives. Sometimes it's messy, sometimes beautiful. But it's home. Aurelia's gaze softened. I have seen images of Earth, of humans. But I never imagined it like that, alive, simple, and yet complicated. Ryan smiled faintly. Simple? Maybe. Complicated? Definitely. But that's what makes it worth living. She moved closer and knelt beside him. And you? Do you think you will always be here, doing this? Her voice was low, more personal than he had ever heard from her. I didn't always think about the future, he admitted. But I know this: whatever I do, I want to survive, help others survive. And I don't regret being here with you. Aurelia looked at him, her eyes reflecting the flickering lights. She had spent her life surrounded by advisors, warriors, and nobles, yet she had never spoken like this to anyone. Humans, you speak with honesty I rarely see. Ryan shrugged. We don't have much choice when our lives are on the line. The air grew colder as the night deepened, and the small heater sputtered. They shared a ration pack, eating silently at first, until Aurelia broke the quiet again. My people expect perfection from me, she said. I must always act properly, speak properly, follow every law. It is a heavy burden, heavier than any armor. Ryan leaned back against the wall. You're human enough to know burdens, then. I carry mine too, in my own way. Aurelia tilted her head, curious. And what burden is that? He looked away briefly. I've seen my crew stranded, trapped. I lost friends I couldn't save. I carry the memory with me. Every time I fly, I try not to repeat it. Aurelia's expression softened, and she reached out, touching his shoulder lightly. You protect others even when it is hard. That is strength, Ryan. He caught her hand with a faint smile. And you, princess, you survive even when no one expects you to. That's strength too. For a moment, the harsh walls of duty and pride faded between them. They shared a quiet understanding. The next day, they explored more of the abandoned outpost. Some corridors had collapsed entirely, while others were frozen solid. Aurelia examined the alien panels, explaining details of their design to Ryan. You see, she said, pointing at a faint symbol, this structure was meant to last for centuries. Humans, you build differently. Your cities fall sooner. Ryan laughed softly. We build for now. You build for forever. Both have their risks. Aurelia smiled faintly, shaking her head. Your humor is strange. But it grows on me. As they moved through a long corridor, a loud crash echoed behind them. A small part of the ceiling had collapsed, dust and ice falling like rain. Ryan grabbed Aurelia instinctively, pulling her close. Careful, he said, his voice serious. These ruins are fragile. I can handle myself, she replied, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. But thank you. The small moment lingered. Neither of them said more, but the bond between them grew, unspoken but real. Later, they found a small chamber with old data pads. Aurelia touched one, her fingers tracing alien symbols. These are records of my people's history. Their achievements, their mistakes. All of it. Ryan looked over her shoulder. That must feel overwhelming. She nodded slowly. Yes. But also grounding. I remember why I must survive. Not just for myself, but for everyone who believes in me. Ryan considered this quietly. I understand. Sometimes knowing why you fight, that makes all the difference. Aurelia glanced at him, her eyes filled with something softer than pride: respect, trust, perhaps even curiosity. I am glad you are here, Ryan. Not just to survive, but to remind me of what I am capable of. Ryan felt warmth in his chest, something deeper than survival or duty. He realized he was no longer thinking of her as just a princess. She was a person he respected, someone he could rely on. That night, they sat near the flickering heater again, sharing stories of their worlds. Ryan spoke of Earth's oceans and forests, of music and art, of the ordinary lives humans led. Aurelia told of crystal cities, glowing towers, and the pressure of being a princess. Through their stories, they began to understand each other. They saw beyond the differences of species, culture, and duty. They saw each other. And for the first time since the accident, they felt less alone. Ryan and Aurelia had settled into the abandoned outpost, their days passing slowly with small repairs and shared meals of ration packs. The small heater kept the air barely warm, but they had survived longer than either expected. One morning, the faint hum of the makeshift transmitter they had repaired crackled to life. Aurelia's eyes lit with hope. Finally, someone might receive our signal. Ryan nodded and adjusted the controls. Let's see if anyone answers. But hope quickly turned into tension. The signal beacon did not attract rescuers. Instead, sensors on the outpost began detecting approaching vessels, small, fast ships with no insignia. Pirates. Scavengers. The same kind of people who had attacked them before. They found us, Ryan muttered. And they're not coming to help. Aurelia's jaw tightened. We cannot leave. We will fight if we must. Ryan gave a short nod. Agreed. But we'll need strategy. They outnumber us and have weapons that can tear this place apart. Together, they prepared. Ryan checked energy blasters salvaged from the outpost, while Aurelia reconfigured alien defense panels to reinforce the entrances. Their teamwork had improved over days of survival. They no longer argued as much, but communicated with quiet efficiency. When the first scavenger ship landed on the frozen ground outside, alarms blared. The intruders moved quickly, breaking through the weak outer doors. Ryan and Aurelia were ready. Stay close, Ryan whispered. Aurelia nodded, her hands steady on the controls of a small defense turret. Let them come. We will not fall. The corridor shook as the first intruder entered. Sparks flew when blasters met reinforced walls. Ryan moved through the shadows, striking when necessary, while Aurelia's precise aim from the turret kept the scavengers at bay. You're fast, she said briefly as he dodged a blast and returned fire. You're better than I expected, he replied, ducking behind a frozen support beam. Together, they cleared one corridor after another. Aurelia guided him through hidden passages only she knew from her knowledge of alien architecture. Ryan blocked entrances and set traps with quick improvisation. Hours passed, and they worked seamlessly, their movements synchronized. They spoke little, relying on gestures, glances, and timing. Finally, the last scavenger fled, their small ship slipping away into the distance. The outpost was quiet once more, except for the soft hum of the weak power systems. Ryan exhaled heavily. That could have gone worse. Aurelia smiled faintly, brushing frost from her robes. You risked yourself to protect me. And you risked yourself to save me, he replied. We are even. For a moment, they looked at each other, no words needed. The bond between them had grown through shared danger, mutual trust, and teamwork. As the day continued, Ryan checked the damage. The outpost had held, but not without cost. Panels were destroyed, and the temperature was dropping again. Aurelia moved beside him, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. You know, she said softly, I would not have survived this alone. Ryan looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. Neither would I, he admitted. She nodded, the hint of a smile breaking through her usual proud expression. Perhaps, humans and aliens are not so different after all. Finally, Ryan said, a faint chuckle escaping him. Took you long enough to see it? That night, they sat near the flickering heater. Silence was comfortable now. It was no longer heavy or tense. It was the silence of two survivors who had shared battles and fear, someone to rely on in a hostile universe. Aurelia broke the quiet. Ryan, when we are found, we will have to return to our worlds. You to yours, I to mine. Do you think, this bond we have formed can survive that? Ryan paused. He considered the days, the battles, the quiet conversations in the cold halls of the outpost. It doesn't have to end, he said finally. We have proven that we can trust each other, rely on each other. That bond, it can last. Aurelia looked at him, her eyes reflecting the weak light. I hope so. For I have learned to value what I never knew I needed, someone who sees me, not as a princess, but as a person. Ryan smiled, a warmth spreading in his chest. And I have learned to respect someone for their courage and intelligence, not their title. Outside, the frozen wind howled, but inside the outpost, two lives had found a rare connection in a hostile universe. They had fought together, survived together, and begun to understand each other. Though challenges still awaited, Ryan and Aurelia knew one thing for certain: together, they were stronger than they had ever been alone. The stars outside seemed endless, but they no longer felt entirely alone in the vastness of space. The station was silent, floating in the endless sea of stars. The lights that Ryan had managed to restore flickered weakly, casting long shadows across the metallic halls. Dust drifted in the air, untouched for many years. For Ryan and Alira, this place had become both prison and shelter. They had been trapped there for many cycles of sleep, waiting for their repaired beacon to send a signal strong enough to be heard. Food was still limited, though the small machines they found in the station provided water and a strange kind of dry nourishment. It was not tasty, but it kept them alive. At first, they spoke little. Survival left them tired, and their minds were heavy with worry. But as time passed, silence became harder than speaking. One night, while they sat near the weak glow of the repaired power core, Alira finally broke the quiet. Your people, she said softly, live without rulers like mine. How do you guide each other if no bloodline sits on a throne? Ryan looked at her, surprised. We choose leaders, he explained. Not forever. For a time. Then new ones come. Anyone can rise, if they work hard. Alira's eyes reflected both wonder and sadness. In my world, choice is rare. I was born to rule, whether I wished it or not. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like, to be free like your people. Ryan gave a small smile. Freedom has weight too. It means mistakes are ours to carry. But I'd rather carry mistakes than live with chains. For the first time, Alira smiled back, a true smile not forced by duty. It was a quiet moment, but it warmed the cold air around them. The days stretched on. They explored deeper into the station together. Alira showed her skills in reading old markings left behind, while Ryan used his hands and tools to bring dead machines back to life. She often watched him work, surprised at how he could repair with so little. Your methods are strange, she remarked once, as he used wire from a broken panel to fix a power line. Strange. Ryan chuckled. It's just making do with what's there. In my palace, she said, when something broke, it was replaced by something new. I never saw someone rebuild from scraps. Ryan shrugged. Humans don't always have the luxury of new. We survive because we make use of what we have. Maybe that's why we're still here. Her gaze softened as she realized the truth in his words. At night, when they rested in the same small chamber for warmth, their talks grew longer. Ryan told her about his childhood on a quiet farm. He described the smell of rain on soil, the sound of rivers, and the laughter of simple festivals. Alira listened with wide eyes, almost as if he was telling her a story from another universe. "Your world sounds alive," she whispered. "My palace walls were beautiful, but they were also cages. I often wished to see life without guards and rules." Ryan paused before answering. "Maybe fate brought you here for that reason. To live a little outside the walls." Alira looked at him, and for a moment, her royal pride faded. She was no longer only a princess but simply a person, sitting beside another soul lost in the stars. Slowly, their bond grew. They learned each other's habits, each other's fears. When Ryan worked too hard and his hands bled from tools, Alira carefully bound them with fabric from her robe. When Alira's memories of her lost people brought tears, Ryan sat quietly beside her, giving her strength without needing words. One night, as the beacon finally sent its steady pulse into the stars, they stood together at the station's window, looking out at the endless darkness. "Do you think someone will come?" Alira asked. Her voice held both hope and fear. "They'll come," Ryan said firmly. "Maybe not soon, but someone will hear." "And if they don't," she whispered. Ryan looked at her, then back at the stars. "Then we keep going. Together. That's enough for me." Her breath caught at his words. For the first time, she did not feel like a lost princess or a ruler to be. She felt like a person who had found someone who truly saw her. The station creaked around them, as if reminding them of its fragile state. Yet inside those cold halls, warmth was growing, something more powerful than fear. They were not only survivors now. They were companions bound by trust, respect, and the silent promise that no matter what the universe threw at them, they would face it side by side. The beacon pulsed into the distance, calling out to whoever might hear. But even if the universe stayed silent, Ryan and Alira knew one truth: they were no longer alone. The beacon's steady signal pulsed into the emptiness of space. Each beat was like a heartbeat, a small promise of hope in the endless dark. Ryan and Alira waited, counting the cycles of sleep and wake as time passed slowly. At first, nothing happened. Only silence answered them. But one cycle later, the sensors on the station picked up movement. A ship was approaching. Alira pressed her hand to the screen, her eyes wide. "A vessel. Someone has heard us." Ryan narrowed his gaze. "Not every ship is a friend. We need to be careful." As the craft grew closer, their hopes faded. It was not a royal fleet or a rescue ship. The scanners showed a scavenger vessel, old, patched together, and armed. These were not rescuers. These were hunters of the forgotten, searching for wrecks to strip and survivors to exploit. "They will come for us," Alira whispered, fear in her voice. "Then we don't let them," Ryan replied calmly. "We hold on. We make them think twice." The scavenger ship docked with the ruined station. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors as a small group entered. Their voices were rough, their intentions clear: strip the station, take anything of value, and decide later what to do with the two survivors. Ryan moved quickly, guiding Alira into the shadows of a control room. "Stay behind me," he whispered. "I'll handle this." Alira shook her head firmly. "No. We handle this together." Ryan met her eyes and nodded. He no longer saw only a princess, he saw a partner. They began to set traps. Ryan used wires, loose panels, and broken machines to create hazards in the corridors. Alira used her knowledge of the station's alien systems, locking doors and creating false signals to confuse their enemies. When the scavengers entered deeper, alarms blared suddenly. A heavy door shut behind them, cutting off their retreat. Sparks flew from broken wires Ryan had rigged. The scavengers shouted in anger, firing their weapons at shadows. From the control room, Ryan whispered, "They think there are more of us." Alira smiled faintly. "Good. Let them fear what they cannot see." The scavengers searched for the source of the beacon. They grew frustrated, breaking panels and shouting threats. Ryan and Alira stayed hidden, moving quietly through the forgotten halls. At one point, a scavenger came close, his boots heavy against the floor. Ryan held his breath, gripping a metal rod as a weapon. But before he could strike, Alira touched his arm and shook her head. Together, they stayed silent until the danger passed. It was not only survival, it was trust, built through days of hardship. Finally, the scavengers found the beacon room. They began tearing at the device, trying to steal its parts. "If they destroy it, no one will ever find us," Alira whispered urgently. "Then we stop them," Ryan replied. He stepped out from the shadows, holding the metal rod like a staff. His voice rang out strong. "Leave the beacon. Leave the station. You won't get what you came for." The scavengers laughed at the sight of one human alone. But before they could advance, Alira appeared beside him. With royal poise, she stood tall, her voice commanding, "This station belongs to the crown. Touch it again, and you face the wrath of a kingdom far greater than you can imagine." Her words, full of power, made the scavengers hesitate. In that moment, the beacon sent out a sharp signal burst, the final upgrade Alira had programmed into it. Minutes later, new signals appeared on the scanners. This time, it was not scavengers. A fleet of royal ships came into view, shining bright against the darkness. The scavengers cursed in fear. They rushed back to their vessel, desperate to escape before the fleet arrived. Ryan and Alira watched as the scavenger ship pulled away and vanished into the void. Alira let out a long breath, her body trembling with relief. "They came," she whispered. "Yes," Ryan said softly. "They came for you." The royal fleet docked with the station. Guards in shining armor rushed in, bowing before Alira. The captain's voice was filled with relief. "Princess, you are safe. We feared the worst." Alira looked at Ryan, who stood quietly at her side, covered in dust and oil from his work. For a moment, she did not answer the captain. Her eyes stayed on Ryan, as if the bond between them was stronger than the call of duty. Finally, she nodded to the guards. "Yes. I am safe. Thanks to him." The guards turned to Ryan, their eyes full of surprise. A single human man had protected the heir of an alien kingdom. As they prepared to leave the ruined station, Alira felt a heaviness in her chest. She was returning to her people, her crown, her duties. But leaving Ryan behind felt wrong. On the royal ship, as the stars shifted around them, she stood beside him one last time. "Ryan," she said softly, "our worlds are far apart. Yet in this darkness, I found light because of you." Ryan gave a small smile. "And I found more than survival because of you." Their words were simple, but they carried the weight of all they had endured together. When the fleet carried them away, the stars outside shone brighter than before. Their paths might soon separate Princess to her throne, human to his simple life, but the bond they had built was unshakable. For in the silence of space, in the shadow of fear, they had discovered something greater than survival. They had discovered each other. And that bond, though unspoken, would never fade.